Pain is the hammer of the gods to break a dead resistance in the mortal's heart, his slow inertia as of living stone. If the heart were not forced to want and weep, his soul would have lain down content at ease and never thought to exceed the human start and never learned to climb towards the sun. Now, this is not a complete answer. Sri Aurobindo doesn't present this as a complete answer to the question of pain. This is the temporary role that pain plays in our life. As I said, as long as we are in the realm of ignorance. It is very patent that in life as we see, there are very, very intelligent people who can think of all kinds of schemes, all kinds of ways by which they should be able to escape pain. But we rarely come across people who have been able to do it. So, it follows therefore that keeping us happy as we understand the notion of happiness doesn't seem to be the purpose of this creation. This may be unfortunate, but this is a fact. The purpose of this creation seems to plod us on to evolve, to grow from within. Now, it is not necessary that growth must always come as a result of pain. There are other ways also of growing, but they are more difficult and you need a greater inner development before you can follow what may be called the sunlit path. There is also a sunlit path of the unfoldment of the soul. That path is always there, but it's a difficult path. Like all simple things are difficult, as you know. As they say, the most difficult asana is the shavasana. When you go to the asana class, you are all very anxious. Shall I stand on my head? He said, no, not needed. Shall I lift my feet 90 degrees? He said, no, not necessary. What am I supposed to do? Nothing. You just lie down. The most difficult thing. So, there is an equivalent of this for spiritual progress, which is simply to resolve and tell oneself, let thy will be done. I have no private agenda in life. Let your agenda be my agenda. Once you can do that, then there is no pain, it's the sunlit path. But in a sense, this comes as a siddhi of yoga, to be able to say, as you all know, before Narendranath Dutt became Swami Vivekananda, a time came in the life of Narendranath Dutt when his father died suddenly, and his father was a large-hearted person, so whatever money he earned, he would give it away, and there was nothing left for the family, for the children. And Narendranath Dutt just had come under the influence of Ramakrishna Paramhans, but had not yet become a full-time follower. He was still on the hedge, as it were, wondering whether there is anything in spiritual life or this is all a big tamasha. He was not yet decided, but he was spellbound by the personality of Ramakrishna. He kept going to Dakshineshwar and so on. When his father died, the economic condition at home was so bad that he had to roam the streets of Calcutta looking for a job. Now God also has very interesting, funny ways. Any fool who goes to Calcutta or Bombay can land some job. That is why every day 500 families go and settle in Bombay. You may not get a house, but you get a job, provided you are willing to do the work that comes your way. Swami Vivekananda was later on went on to Chicago and shook the whole Western world, found it difficult to get the job of a Babu in Calcutta. So he was kind of going round and round, going home at night, and the mother would say, "Come and have your meal." He knew if he sat for the meal, the mother might have to go hungry. So he would tell the mother, "Mother, no, I had just had a feast. I went to so in such a person's place for breakfast, whatever, party, birthday party. My stomach is bursting. I have no place for any more food. Please, you go ahead." This is what he had to do. During that time, when Ramakrishna Paramahamsa learned the precarious condition of this family, one evening when he had gone to see him, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa calls Vivekananda, at that time Narendranath Dutt, and says, "Look, this is the Kali temple. I have spent a whole lifetime offering worship here. I assure you, you go and stand before the mother and ask her whatever you want and you will get it. Whatever you want, you ask her. All that you have to do is to ask her." Vivekananda has asked so many people, he has gone, so many officers, asked for a job. Why not go and ask the mother? So he goes. When the door is shut, he finds himself in the sanctum sanctorum, looks at the Divine Mother, and he asks, "O Mother, increase my vairagyam, give me more bhakti," and things of that kind, totally irrelevant things. And comes back, and Ramakrishna says, "Did you ask at least for a clerical job or a superintendent in some construction site, any kind of job?" He says, "No, I forgot." "What did you ask for?" "I asked for dispassion, I asked for vairagyam, I asked for knowledge, I asked for devotion." He said, "What a fool are you? Just go and ask what you want." He said, "I will try again." Second time he went, and second time exactly he asked for the same thing again. Now, if you are standing before God and God tells you, you ask for one thing, I will give you whatever you want, what will you ask? Because our physical wants are so many. God is not asking us, "Give me a shopping list." Ask me for one thing. Best thing you can ever ask is, make me desireless. In other words, make sure I have no shopping list left. So, it is when you come to this position, which is not easy, it requires long sadhana. This is what sadhana is all about. Sadhana is ultimately realizing that making God's agenda your agenda is the best way of living this life. But until then, until you come to that point, pain seems to be a necessity, unfortunately, in most human lives. Now, Sri Aurobindo is not saying he is happy with the situation. In fact, the whole aim of his yoga is to alter this harsh condition. Earlier on, if you remember, when you were reading Canto 2, I drew your attention to a line, "Altered must be nature's harsh economy." This is nature's harsh economy. This has to change. This nobody has been able to change. If you have undergone all this suffering and come to a point, then people can teach you how to go to the divine fulfillment. But until then, that's the most difficult path. Can that path be made redundant? That was the quest of Sri Aurobindo. And therefore, as I was saying, although this seems to be the place of pain, he is not happy with it. You see, if you read the Life Divine or any of Sri Aurobindo's books, you understand why things are what they are. You know why there is ignorance, why there is pain, why there is suffering. But at the same time, it does not make you complacent. Oh, ignorance is there, let there be ignorance. It also makes you feel there is ignorance, I know why it is there. Then you also realize it is incumbent on you to do something to eliminate all these inadequacies. So there is a double kind of thing. He explains why the world is what it is. And so, you do not find fault with God. Why did you do this? Why did you know why He did this? Why ignorance was created? You know why ignorance was created. But at the same time, you also feel that ignorance was created is no reason why you have to put up with ignorance forever. You have to do something to eliminate ignorance. That is the whole thrust of Sri Aurobindo's thinking, his writing. Explains God's word, but also makes you a participant in God's becoming. This is the world that God has become. To say that God has become this world is not therefore to say the world is already perfect. It is a miracle gradually blossoming towards perfection. And in this blossoming towards perfection, you and I have a stake, and you and I have a role to play. And so, it is therefore not a complete answer to say that there is ignorance now and therefore pain is necessary. Something has to be done to eliminate pain. Secondly, he also explains later how pain came. It's an incidental circumstance in the process of the full manifestation of the divine reality, which is already implicit in matter. That part will come to later on as we see that part later in Narad's statement. But before that, there is something else which is very important he draws your attention to, and that is, you can escape pain as an individual. But this escaping of pain as an individual doesn't at all help mankind. Man's lot doesn't change. You have escaped through pain. Many avatars who have come here. An avatar is a great avatar not simply because he is committed, his mission is to see that the lot of humanity is improved. And so, in the next passage that we are now going to read, he shows pain is there not only for you and me, but pain is there even for the Son of God who comes down to earth. Last line of that page, 444, he who would save himself lives bare and calm. He who would save the race must share its pain. If you would save the world, want to help the world, you can't do it without sharing the world's pain. He who would save the race must share its pain. This he shall know, who obeys the grandiose urge, the great who came to save this suffering world and rescue out of time's shadow and the law, must pass beneath the yoke of grief and pain. They are caught by the wheel that they had hoped to break. On their shoulders they must bear man's load of fate. Heaven's riches they bring, their sufferings count the price, or they pay the gift of knowledge with their lives. It gives the example of Jesus, the Son of God, born as the Son of Man, has drunk the bitter cup, owned Godhead's debt, the debt the eternal owes to the fallen kind. His will has bound to death and struggling life that yearns in vain for rest and endless peace. Now is the debt paid, wiped off the original score. The eternal suffers in a human form. He has signed salvation's testament with his blood. He has opened the doors of his undying peace. The deity compensates the creature's claim. The Creator bears the law of pain and death. A retribution smites the incarnate God. His love has paved the mortal's road to heaven. The Avatar, with his love, prepares this golden bridge, which you and I can then use to cross from this world of imperfection and ignorance. This is a beautiful passage I just wanted to draw our attention to about Christ. Now, we have very funny ideas about God. God for us is simply a magician. And so, very often, I very often refer to this little event that happened in Hyderabad some years ago. There was going to be a conference of church leaders of some denomination. And so all over the city, they had these posters, Jesus saves, everywhere. Now Hyderabad is a funny place, as you know. Some bright fellow said, we must teach these fellows a lesson. So there was a counter poster propaganda. Next day we found other posters which said, how can he save anyone who couldn't save himself? Meaning thereby, how can Christ save himself? He himself could not save himself. This man felt he had done something very wonderful, brilliant. He had said something brilliant without realizing what a stupid thing he had said. Now just imagine this following scenario. The Roman general, pilot, soldiers who are pushing Christ. Christ is carrying this cross going up the hill along with a bunch of thieves, cheats, murderers and so on. And suppose Christ had to do the following trick. What is the trick? The cross is left there and Christ is missing. Everybody says, send a search party, where is Christ? Seal off all the coasts, this, that, the other. Christ has simply disappeared. So they're wondering, where has he gone? Then when you are absolutely desperate, you see somebody on the peak of a nearby hill, and there Christ is saying and says, bye-bye, tata. Christ has escaped. Would that make him a god? That would make him a magician. It only requires a god not to disappear, carry the cross, be nailed to the cross, And when you are profusely bleeding, then say to the Lord, please forgive them because they know not what they are doing. This love only an avatar can give. Disappearing like magic, showing great powers. This is not God's work. P.C. Sarkar Jr. probably can do this. Or the great Houdini. We salute their prowess in the art that they are pursuing, but we don't call them avatars and gods. Christ is an avatar simply because he comes down, wears all your limitations, lives like you, suffers, and yet rises above suffering. And even when he was on the cross, if he was biting his lips and gnashing his teeth and said, these fellows, they don't understand my greatness, he doesn't say anything. It's forgiveness in his heart, prayer in his heart, love for all the people who did this to him, even at that moment when he was bleeding to death. This is what he says. God comes to pave the way to heaven with his love, and he has to pay the price for our weaknesses, our inadequacies. This is what an avatar does. And so this passage is a beautiful passage which shows how pain doesn't leave even an avatar. Page 447. There are a number of reasons why there is this pain, suffering. One is, although we don't see them, there are hostiles, there are asuric forces, the kinds of forces that were let loose during the Second World War, these forces made Hitler a warlord and guided him at every step. So there are these forces from the other worlds, hostile worlds, which come here and shake humanity. And he is referring to that on page 447, about half down the page. A dark hostility, a dark concealed hostility is lodged in the human depths, in the hidden heart of time, that claims the right to change and mar God's work. A secret enmity ambushes the world's march. It leaves a mark on thought and speech and act. It stamps stain and defect on all things done. Till it is slain, peace is forbidden on earth. There is no visible foe, but the unseen is around us. Forces intangible besiege. 2-3 lines later, an adversary force was born of old, invader of the life of mortal man. It hides from him the straight, immortal path. Later on, page 448, the beautiful passage about what a world redeemer has to do. Hard is the world redeemer's heavy task. The world itself becomes his adversary. Those he would save are his antagonists. This world is in love with its own ignorance. This world is in love with its own ignorance. Its darkness turns away from the Savior light. It gives the cross in payment for the crown. His work is a trickle of splendor in a long night. He sees the long march of time, the little one. A few are saved and the rest strive on and fail. A sun has passed, on earth night's shadow falls. Yet there are happy ways near to God's sun, but few are they who tread the sunlit paths. Only the pure in soul can walk in light. An exit is shown, a road of hard escape from the sorrow and the darkness and the chain, but how shall a few escaped release the world? This has been the story for a long, long time. A great saint comes, a great sage comes down. Some people are influenced by his presence, by his example, by his teaching. Just as he has escaped this network of suffering and ignorance, he also enables a few other people to follow this path. How many people? 500,000 people escape ignorance, 2,000 people, 5,000 people, 10,000 people, let us say 100,000 people have been saved because somebody like Ramakrishna came and lived in this world. But against the world's population, what is 100,000? How many more Ramakrishnas have to come before mankind as a whole is saved? This has been the sorry state of affairs of this world. An exit is shown, a road of hard escape from the sorrow and the darkness and the chain. But how shall a few escape release the world? The human mass lingers beneath the yoke. Escape, however high, redeems not life. Life that is left behind on a fallen earth. Escape cannot uplift the abandoned race or bring to it victory and the reign of God. This is the example some time ago I gave of IIT. Remember the IIT example? It's very easy, somebody says. Succeeding in life is very easy. Finding God is very easy. It takes only 15 years in the Himalayas under a competent guru. If you are particularly gifted, it may take 10 years. If you are super gifted, only 5-year plan. Like, succeeding in life is very easy, I always tell people. Why are you worried? Get your son to join the IIT and get a degree. Electronics, maybe. Any IIT degree is good enough. All the markets of the world will open for him. Job market, Singapore calls him, Yale University calls him, Oxford, everywhere he is welcomed. But the problem is how to get into IIT. Oh, that's very easy. You just have to pass an entrance test. Oh, is that so? How many students take the entrance test per year? Oh, about 5 to 10 lakhs. How many seats are there? Maybe 500 to 600. So, before you can get your moksha, you have first of all to reach a stage when you can benefit from this guru's advice, training. For that you need mumukshatvam here. As Shankara says, without mumukshatvam, without vairagyam, you read any book or take any guru, you have no escape. These things have to come. How does that come? Oh, it's like the IIT test. Take it, pass it. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatati siddhaye. The Gita says, among thousands and thousands of people, occasionally somebody has a desire for these things. So if it is occasionally people have a desire for these things, When will the earth be redeemed? When will humanity be redeemed? What is this fate of mankind? And that is why Sri Aurobindo is always saying, escape cannot uplift the abandoned race or bring to it victory and the reign of God. A greater power must come, a larger light. For this to happen, a greater power must come, a larger light. That's why, as I have been saying, after getting the highest siddhis, he spent 40 years here in the ashram, 40 long years. People kept writing to him, why don't you come out and lead the Congress party? It has no leaders now. Munje wrote to him, Nagpur is going to have a special session of the Congress party. We want you to come out and be the president of that. He says, my work is not yet completed. What is the work? The work is bringing this greater power. A greater power must come, a larger light. Unless that is done, a few people may be saved, but humanity as a whole has no hope. Page 449, second line, one yet may come, armored, invincible. His will immobile meets the mobile hour. The world's blows cannot bend that victor head. Calm and sure are his steps in the growing night. The goal recedes, he hurries not his pace. He turns not to high voices in the night. He asks no aid from the inferior gods. His eyes are fixed on his immutable aim. This is one yet may come, armored, invincible, who is not looking at smaller goals, who is looking at smaller siddhis. He is looking at the ultimate. You must have read it in the lives of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. There was a time when Mother came and reported to Sri Aurobindo, I am in possession of a great power. I can bring forth a new world. A much better world than the world that you see now. Sri Aurobindo paused for a while and said, I don't want a new edition of the old fiasco. The world that is now getting ready to come is not that world which will solve this problem. What you will be able to do if you allow this new world to emerge is you will be able to establish a new religion so powerful that the world has never seen such a religion before. And you will be the founder of this new religion. Mother listened to him, went back to her room and dissolved this entire new world. So that's what you need. Wait. One yet may come, armored, invincible, not for smaller gains, but the highest power has to come, because only that can annihilate the need for ignorance, the hostility that is lodged here. That's why he says, he asks no aid from the inferior gods. His eyes are fixed on his immutable aim. Someday this is going to happen. That's what Narad is saying. The entire passage is about that. And on page 451, when this new light is brought down, middle of about 8-10 lines from the top, then shall be ended here the law of pain. Earth shall be made a home of heaven's light. A seer heaven-born shall lodge in human breasts. The superconscient beam shall touch men's eyes, and the truth-conscious world come down to earth, invading matter with the Spirit's ray, awaking its silence to immortal thoughts, awaking the dumb heart to the living word. This mortal life shall house eternity's bliss. The body's self taste immortality. Then shall the world Redeemer's task be done. Only when that power has been brought down and the entire stables here have been cleansed, so that pain will be an alien to this world, then he says, shall the world Redeemer's task be done. Till then, must life carry its seed of death, and sorrow's plaint be heard in the slow night. O mortal, bear this great world's law of pain in thy hard passage through a suffering world. Lean for thy soul's support on heaven's strength. Turn towards high truth. Aspire to love and peace. A little bliss is lent thee from above, a touch divine upon thy human days. Make of thy daily way a pilgrimage, for through small joys and griefs thou movest towards God, until the world Redeemer comes down and completes his work. There is no other way for us but to move, as he says, through small joys and griefs of our everyday life, slowly through this experience, move closer and closer to God. A little bliss is lent thee from above, a touch divine upon thy human days. Make of thy daily way a pilgrimage, for through small joys and griefs thou movest towards God. There are many things. I don't know when we finish this long, wonderful canto. There are many more things here. He is talking about later on. As long as there is pain, it simply means God within you wants to break out and establish himself. Like life coming out of an egg, it has to crack, come out. We have imprisoned the divine in our heart, in our being. He is impatient, he wants to come out. We are forgetful of his existence. So how does he remind us of his presence there? He pinches you once in a while. You feel hurt, you feel pain. It is all signal given by him. That's why he says, the soul's suffering is not eternity's key, or page 453, or ransom by sorrow heaven's demand on life, etc. Later on, about 6-7 lines from the end of that page, 453, he says, pain is the signature of the ignorance. Pain is the signature of the ignorance. So where there is pain, immediately you can conclude this is the signature of ignorance. Doing what? Attesting the secret God denied by life. Attesting. I certify that there is an unfulfilled God in you who wants to come out. Pain is the signature of the ignorance, attesting the secret God denied by him. Until life finds him, pain can never end. Until life finds God, pain can never end. Later on, there is a description of how pain arose, the origin of pain. I don't know whether we have time for all that, but I would like you to draw your attention to it on page 454, where you have a new section begins. O mortal, who complainest of death and fate, accuse none of the harms thyself hast called. This troubled world thou hast chosen for thy home. Thou art thyself the author of thy pain. How did pain come? Then he explains, once in the immortal boundlessness of self, in a vast of truth and consciousness and light, the soul looked out from its felicity. It felt the spirit's interminable bliss. It knew itself deathless, timeless, spaceless, one. It saw the eternal, lived in the infinite. Then, this was what it was. Then what happens? Then, curious of a shadow thrown by truth, it strained towards some otherness of self. It was drawn to an unknown face peering through night. It sensed a negative infinity, a void supernal whose immense excess, imitating God and everlasting time, offered a ground for nature's adverse birth, and matter's rigid, hard unconsciousness, harboring the brilliance of a transient soul that lights up birth and death and ignorant life. Now this is an idea which occurs very frequently in Sri Aurobindo's writings, in the mother's writings, the origin of this word, the origin of pain. Now, one thing we must remember, if we want to understand all the secrets of this universe, all the secrets of this creation, you should be able to make your consciousness as vast as the consciousness of the Creator Himself. With your little human consciousness and its reason, you cannot understand God's purpose in life. Sri Aurobindo says in one of his letters, trying to understand with human reason why God created this world is a brave enterprise, all right. But don't forget, no matter how hard you try, your so-called intellect is still a finite instrument of a finite being. It cannot comprehend the logic of the infinite. God, or this world, began with the Big Bang 15 billion years ago. Do you know how much 15 billion years is? And during these 15 billion years, if you look at the entire evolution, man appeared on this earth. If you compress all these 15 billion years within 24 hours, man arrived on this earth only 5 seconds before midnight. We have been here for such a brief period of time. And that is our mind. And we would like to judge God's purpose in this vast world. It is like a little ant trying to judge a human being. How can he? And that is why the highest wisdom always says, at the level of your intellect, the highest truth is to say, I can't know the truth. agnosticism. I know there is a truth, but I can't know it because the mind is too limited to know the truth. And one who says this is saying something sensible, but he is not saying the whole thing. Because mind, human reason cannot know the truth, he therefore concludes truth cannot be known. That's not true. Truth can be known because human beings have other faculties. Yoga is the process by which you hone your consciousness, you purify your consciousness, you widen your consciousness. And only a purified consciousness can understand the divine by identifying itself with the divine. Divine can only be known by being the divine. This is what Sri Aurobindo calls knowledge by identity.